Hello there. Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. I have for you a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program. I have two guests at 3:20. Armin Katayan, a legend in the business of sports journalism, will join me. He has a new book out about the chaos that is college football right now. 4:20, Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 Sports will be my guest, and she will be giving us the lowdown on what has been said, what is being said right now at Dove Valley. Sean Payton met with the media moments ago. Now Pat Surtain talking to the media as well about his shiny new contract. I actually don't know how shiny the paper was that he signed, but he signed it, and it means he is going to be a very rich man, and he is going to be playing for the Denver Broncos for the foreseeable future. It is an extension that will pay him $96 million over 4 seasons. Pretty good gig if you can find it. And just think, Patrick Surtain might not even be on the Denver Broncos if George Payton would have sealed the deal with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Pat Surtain was going to be included in the Aaron Rodgers trade. The belief was they were drafting Pat Surtain for the Green Bay Packers. Funny the twists and turns life takes, no? And what's nice about this, and I'm saying this knowing that there is a little bit of this going on, but there shouldn't be. It's really nice when these top of market deals get signed and we don't have this big, huge debate. Does it really deserve it? I know somebody's going to ask that question, and the numbers are going to pop out. In terms of total value of his contract, Pat Surtain is barely among the top 50 highest paid NFL players. It's in line with what Marshawn Lattimore and Marlon Humphrey's contracts are. We don't need to do this. I understand we got to go in depth in every angle. We don't need to do this. It is top of market for a corner, not top of market for defensive players, not top of market for all NFL players. It's top of market for his position. And who's going to argue with Pat Surtain being paid at the top of market for his position? So I am glad for once, because we do this with the quarterbacks all the time. I'm glad for once we could just be like, yep, he deserves it. Because he does. There is no doubt that Pat Surtain deserves to be compensated like the best at his position. Now, you can argue whether he or Sauce Gardner are better. That's the debate. It's between the two of them. And quite honestly, if you have either one, good for you. The one thing I will say in that whole conversation, I'm not denying the talent of Sauce Gardner. But what I am saying is put Pat Surtain on the Jets and put Sauce Gardner on the Denver Broncos and tell me that people don't look at Pat Surtain like they look at Sauce Gardner. Every single one of the 10 Jets starters on defense would start for the Denver Broncos. It's a better defense. It's an elite defense. And I'm not even talking about the addition of Hassan Reddick because I don't even know if he's going to play for the Jets. The Jets are a far superior defense to the Denver Broncos. It's a little bit easier to avoid Pat Surtain with the defense of the Denver Broncos. It just is. But that doesn't take away from how good he is. You know who goes right at Pat Surtain? The Raiders. They do, because they have to go to Davante Adams, and we've seen those battles. If there's anything to encapsulate how good Pat Surtain is at what he does, watch the Raider games. In a league that has every rule in place possible to give an advantage to the receiver, Pat Surtain, in his battles with Davante Adams, they basically battled to a draw. That's basically what it is. Every time the Raiders play the Broncos, I watch that matchup because, honestly, with those two teams, what else there is to watch? But I watch it very closely. Pat Surtain battles Davante Adams to a draw. And that's about the best thing you could say about corners, really. That's a shutdown corner in today's day and age. With offenses schemed the way they are, with quarterback play the way it is, with double moves, with the pass interference rules, illegal contact, holding, all that kind of stuff. If you can battle one of the best wide receivers in the game to a draw regularly, you're a shutdown corner. You're the best at what you do. So we can have the Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain debate. To me, when Sauce Gardner gets paid, he deserves to be paid at least one penny more than Pat Surtain. Let's do that. But Pat Surtain deserves to be paid like the best at what he does. Because he is. And for the Denver Broncos, he's basically turned into what Von Miller was. Different positions, but a player that the Denver Broncos can say, and Broncos fans can say, we got the best one. Or at least they can seriously engage in the conversations. That's what Von Miller was. He was arguably the best at what he does. And Pat Surtain is the same way. A guy that other teams have to game plan for. Broncos haven't had a lot of those guys in recent years. And when you have someone like that, no matter what position they play, if you have arguably the best at that position, you pay him. You pay him as such. And you figure the rest out later. Because I don't think this hurts any chance that Pat Surtain gets traded. In fact, I think it bolsters trade value because his deal is done. Think about Brandon Ayuk. Right? The argument that teams that wanted him were making was, hey, we got to pay a premium in terms of trade value for this guy and turn around and pay him top of market. He already has the contract attached. So this. But now you throw Bo Nix into the mix. And at least the Broncos feel like they have a guy. Because the reason why you would entertain the possibility of trading Pat Surtain is because you're desperate. right? Like the Broncos were when they were trying to acquire Aaron Rodgers, like they were when they acquired Russell Wilson. When you're trying to get the quarterback position right, and you have to pay a lot for it because you're trading for a guy, then to me, all options are on the table. It's never been that Pat Surtain is a guy the Broncos want to trade. But you look at their team and you say, what else do they have of value? But now you throw Bo Nix into the mix. That rhymed. And you say, okay, at least it's settled for now. Right? At least it's settled for now. And if you think highly enough of Bo Nix to at least say, this is a ride worth taking for a couple of years, for 3 years, that's over half of Pat Surtain's contract. So the idea the Broncos would ever deal him has at least been kicked down the road, unless Bo Nix is a spectacular failure this year, and I don't think Sean Payton's going to let that happen. We're going to get well into this deal before the conversation of trading Pat Surtain comes up again. So with that, and with this contract, like Von Miller, like Champ Bailey, going back to the key players in those back-to-back Super Bowl teams, right? Shannon Sharpe, Rod Smith, John Elway. Not all of them finished their career with the Denver Broncos, but all of those guys played for a very long time with Denver. And there's the feeling of being Bronco lifers. Von Miller felt like he was going to be a Bronco for life. Champ Bailey, I know he was acquired from Washington, but they saw that to the end, and much more of his career was played in Denver than it was Washington. Shannon Sharpe, had the cameo for Baltimore at the end of his career, but he's a Bronco. That's what this kind of a deal does. It labels Pat Surtain a Bronco and makes you feel like he's not going anywhere for a very long time. And it's a guy that you can feel like maybe put up into the Ring of Fame one day, which is something that Pat Surtain has talked about, being inspired by the guys who he has seen be inducted and kind of wanting to be that. I legitimately believe that most players would really like to stay where they are for their entire careers. I don't really think there are a lot of guys that say as soon as they get someplace, they don't want to be there. Right? You put down roots, you grow connection to the community, to the team, to your teammates. But the business of football and the business of sports gets in the way, and sometimes you go different places. But especially when you're younger, I think, like Pat Surtain is, I think he still feels like there's time to win. Right? That urgency to win hasn't really crept in yet. So he's happy where he is. And he wants to stay here. And he will for the foreseeable future, and is compensated fairly for his services. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Pat Surtain becoming the highest paid defensive back in the history of the NFL. It sounds big, but again, he deserves it. Why now for the Denver Broncos? Why do this deal now? I think that's a question we'll bring up. So we'll talk more about it. Captains were also named today. Pat Surtain is one of them. Get into that as well. But coming up next, If you really want to know how chaotic the world of college football is right now, my next guest's new book is exactly what you want to read. Armin Katayan, my guest next.
How are you?
I'm doing great, living in this new world of college football with the season starting up. So your book came at the exact right time. I'm curious, uh, when you got really in depth on this, how much more chaotic is it than maybe we see at the surface?
Well, I can tell you that back in 2013, excuse me, Jeff Benedict and I, excuse me, Jeff Benedict and I did a book called The System, which was a deep dive into the state at that time of kind of chaotic college football, big time college football. And they had, it was realignment. The Big Ten and the Big 12 were realigning. There was escalating coaching salaries. There was the expanded or the beginning of the playoffs. I mean, we thought that was crazy compared to what we're witnessing today. It's basically child's play. When you add in, as you mentioned, the portal and NIL and massive realignment, and more than ever now, the media companies really dictating in ways that I think are not necessarily healthy for the sport. The realignment issue. And then when you think about, like, our book, as you said, is called The Price, it's not just the financial windfall that has flowed into the coffers of the college football playoff system, billions of dollars. It's really the emotional and the physical and the psychological toll that's being taken on people who really make their livelihood in the sport. And I think that's what the book does so well, is it really brings that struggle and that toll to life, whether you're a college president like Bobby Robbins at the University of Arizona, or you're Jed Fish now at the University of Washington, or you're a power broker like Jimmy Sexton, or you're Nick Saban who decides to walk away from the sport because you no longer can have the control that you've had for 50 years as a head coach. Time and time again in chapter after chapter, you see that this is just, as you mentioned, this is the brave new world. And where it's headed, I think right now, despite all these attempts to try to get some framework in place and some control in place, nobody really knows where it's going.
Who broke the dam here, Armin? I mean, what was it? I mean, it's hard to pinpoint like one, as much as we'd like to make it.
I can pinpoint it
you
for
can? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think, there's this proverb, Ryan, you reap what you sow. And if you wanted to point a finger in one direction, if you started to point it first in, Mission, Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas, and then Indianapolis, Indiana, the national office of the NCAA and the people that have been in charge of that organization and in the leadership roles of that organization, you can go back, and we do in the book, you can go back in time and see the opportunities that the NCAA had to share the wealth with the labor force that was responsible for creating that wealth, meaning the student athletes in the major sports, particularly football and basketball. But time and time again, it was delay and deny in one court case after another. And sometimes they settled and the plaintiff's lawyers took a big chunk of the change or the payout. And other times they got their butt kicked in court, including in a very famous sort of Board of Regents versus NCAA case where a lower court described the NCAA as a classic cartel. So when you do that math and you follow the money, so to speak, and the court challenges, and then you get to the O'Bannon case, which led to the Alston case, which led to the House case, which led to the Supreme Court ruling on July 1, 2021, that opened the floodgates to NIL. Once NIL entered the picture, and then once people like Tom Mars, who's Jim Harbaugh's attorney, time and time again was able to fight the eligibility, the waiver rule, where you had to sit out for a year before you were eligible, took them to court and set precedents there. That 1-2 punch of the portal and the NIL just threw the association and the entire sport, into turmoil. And, that's where we're at now. And when you add in self-interest and just want and greed in certain ways, certainly in the destruction of the Pac-12 in a matter of 72 hours, it's just not healthy at this point in time. But as I said, people like, Charlie Baker, the new president of the NCAA, they're trying to work within a framework. But right now, despite all these committees and despite all the chatter about, this commission or this independent group is going to monitor this or that or the other thing, there's still a lot of unknowns here.
Armen Keteyian, my guest, he has a new book out called The Price, about the world of college football right now. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh. He had some comments of his, obviously made the rounds over the last 24 hours when it comes to the NCAA, saying they have no credibility. In reading your book and then obviously hearing Jim Harbaugh speak and all this, I wonder, is his stance on athletes being compensated, is it more altruistic, or is it more of an axe to grind with the NCAA? He seems like such an agitator to the NCAA that it's almost like, well, I believe in this, but I'm going to really go after it because it also hurts the NCAA.
Well, I think it's, I've known Jim since his days when he was the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. And I did a book on Mike Ditka during Mike's last final season as the head coach of the Bears. And I got to know Jim then, and I was able to, leverage that friendship and that relationship we had into a big interview with Jim I did in Ann Arbor, and getting to know his attorney, Tom Mars, and Jim Hackett, who was the interim AD that hired Jim. Jim's a quirky guy. He's idiosyncratic. He's highly intelligent. He's not your average everyday kind of cup of tea when it comes to head coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's saying a lot about what head coaches are like. I know them well enough to know that they're a rare breed to begin with. But that's Jim. Jim's very passionate. He's very smart, and he's completely unafraid. And in Jim's situation, as we document in these chapters in the book, which I found to be fascinating on any number of levels,
mm-hmm.
Particularly with the team that won a national championship, Jim found himself in Michigan kind of caught between a school that he really loved. He's a Michigan man at heart, but his relationship with Ward Manuel was strained. And then, to your point, a process he just absolutely hated. And I think, looking at it at the degree and the depth that I did, I can see why he feels that way. I mean, the NCAA basically said in their own language that Jim was lying to them, that he had failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, that he was providing false and misleading information, that he was involved with a failure to cooperate. Those are all the NCAA's words, but the definition of those words all come out of the NCAA dictionary. And to me, there's no question that they had a target on Jim's back, particularly the Committee on Infractions, and particularly the head of that committee, Dave Roberts, who was the chief hearing officer. That case was settled at one point in time. The COI kicked the settlement back. They refused to accept it. And when Jim got a 4-year show cause penalty over these level 2 violations during the COVID dead period, and the fact that the NCAA believed that he was lying to them, even though Jim told them time and time again he did not remember these meetings. And it was only until the infamous cheeseburger receipt was shown to him, which he immediately admitted and said, "Look, who else has a cheeseburger for breakfast on a Saturday? I do." So, but it's one of those things where, Jim was just completely unafraid to, and the 1-2 punch of Jim and Tom Mars, who was an advocate that the NCAA was really like the last person they wanted to deal with, because Tom Mars is super smart. He was the number one in his law class. He was the head general counsel for Walmart for 5 years. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he's not afraid to go on social media and raise questions about the enforcement process. So I think Jim was speaking from the heart, and he had every right to say it because he's seen it, time and time again. And I think it's sad that if you look at the state of college football right now, if you want to know sort of a definition of chaos and where we're at, the fact that Nick Saban walked away because he couldn't have control, and the fact that Jim Harbaugh is coaching the LA Chargers and is not in Ann Arbor, it says a lot about the state of the sport.
Yeah, and Nick Saban, in addition to Jim Harbaugh, is a central figure. A lot of the stories that you tell throughout the book revolve around or spin off of Nick Saban, and that's the kind of feeling I get. Like, is there a world here where Jim Harbaugh is still at Michigan, Nick Saban still at Alabama, and to a lesser degree, but I think also is indicative of the craziness that is Chip Kelly being the head coach of a program instead of taking, essentially a demotion because he doesn't want to deal with it. Is there a world here where all those three guys are still leading their institutions today?
No, I don't think in this world. No, I don't think so. I think I've known Nick since his days with the Miami Dolphins. I profiled him for 60 Minutes. Texting friends with Terry, his wife. I know for a fact that they were unwound by how that season played out, and on a lot of different levels. And I know when Nick went down after they lost to Michigan in the Rose Bowl, and he went down to his beachfront estate in Jupiter, Florida, and came back to Tuscaloosa, he had a line of players outside his door, and normally those players would be waiting to say, "Hey, Coach Saban, what can I do, in the off season to get better in my development so I can play more or I can make a bigger impact on the field?" No, every one of those players was there to say, "Coach, if I don't get more money, NIL money, I'm going in the portal." And Terry basically said to Nick, like, "What are we doing here? This isn't what we signed up for." And, Nick's 72 years old. Would he still like to be coaching, at Bryant-Denny Stadium? I don't think there's any question, but not under the circumstances that we currently see. And I think you made a great point about Chip Kelly. I mean, he walked away from $4 million at UCLA, head coaching money, to go take the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State. And he said it's the happiest he and his wife have ever been coaching in recent years because he doesn't have to deal with all the BS outside, particularly at UCLA, which is different than SC because they don't have the facility. They don't have the necessarily the NIL infrastructure there that certainly other schools have right now. And it just gets exhausting. It's hard enough to be a head coach and win football games in a Power 4 conference now, let alone have to do that and have to go out and deal with collectives and raise NIL money every year. And then deal with whatever's happening in the portal. Every 6 months, you don't even know what your team is. And then the last point being, let's just say you bring in a bunch of kids like A&M did and pay a lot of money for them as recruits, and they go into a locker room where the starters are making less than half of what these kids are making or making nothing at all. And the chemistry of that A&M team that led to the demise of Jimbo Fisher, is another exhibit A as to, what can happen to a football team.
And now you have this kind of new breed. And I know Lane Kiffin kind of fits into both categories. And you talk about the dynamic. I found it quite funny, the dynamic between he and Nick Saban when the two of them were in Alabama that you write about. But it's like we have one of those guys, one of these new breed of college football coaches up the road about an hour and a half in Boulder when it comes to Deion Sanders. I mean, when you look at the coaches that are either taking the mantle of the new world of college football or or wanting to be a head coach in the new world of college football. I mean, what does that archetype look like if Deion Sanders is, kind of the example that we look at?
Well, I'll say the jury is still out in Boulder. I'm not hopping on, and I haven't been on the Deion bandwagon for a number of reasons. I think Colorado was in a position where certainly at the bottom of the conference, where they had to make a controversial choice, and whatever happens there, I think Deion in a lot of ways is the archetype right now of the outgoing, boisterous. I can go on and on certain things that I don't need to get into at this point. I think what Lane's got going on at Ole Miss, Lane's a changed person personally. He's been sober now for, I think, 3 years. He's not the narcissistic P word that Nick called him, when he was talking to Jimmy Sexton. I think the what they have with their collective, the Ole Miss Grove Collective, is a standard bearer. They've done a terrific job in building that collective and really, what's the word I'm looking for? Electrifying their fan base and knowing that that's how you win. You need the collective behind you. And I think those kinds of coaches, what Jed is going to have to do now in rebuilding the Washington Huskies after losing, I think he said, I saw today, 20 of his 22 starters for one reason or another off of that national championship title game team. You're going to have an incredible amount of energy. You're going to have a plan in place. But even when you have all of those things, when you're getting battered right and left and sideways and up and down every day by this changing world, you either adjust or you exit, and I think that's what's happening. I mean, when Jay Wright walked away from Villanova, a lot of people are like, well, what, why would he do that? Well, he saw the writing on the wall a lot earlier than other people did. And there's a lot of athletic directors that have just walked away too, because they don't need Gene Smith at Ohio State being a prime example of that. They just don't want to deal with this anymore. So I think it's a really good question. I just don't know. We're not singing any sad songs for guys making north of, $8, $9, $10, $11 million a year, but there is the human side to this. And I think that's what the price really explores so well is, and not just from the coaching perspective, it's from the athlete perspective, the presidents, the ADs, the compliance people, the player personnel directors, everybody's feeling it. And I just hope at some point in time here, and sooner rather than later, people put their own self-interest aside and think of the greater good, which they are doing now, but you still have to make these very tough decisions, certainly on the revenue sharing side, certainly for Colorado State. How are they, you got to raise $20 million and for your football team, that's kind of what the number is right now. How does that happen? And what's the fallout from that? What happens to the non-revenue sports? What happens to, facility upgrades and things like that? So all that remains to be seen.
Well, the price may not paint a rosy picture of what's going on in college football, but it's a wonderful insight into what is going on and all the people. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh's attorney. There's some people here that I think in the book that Armin writes about that you need to know that are really moving things or were crucial in having college football turn to the way it is right now. Pick it up now. The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. Whether you go to bookstore and buy it or go online, please do. It is a fantastic read, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Armin Katayan. Armin, been a fan for a long time. Appreciate you doing this and appreciate the time you're spending with me today.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. That's Armin Katayan. Yeah, when talk to somebody as big as Armin Katayan, I can't even say his name right. But no, it's. I just finished it last night. Just last couple of chapters in it. It is. It's fascinating, to be sure, but again, not necessarily a rosy picture. And I knew the Jalen Rashada story, but not the way that Armin does. And he tells it in the book, and it's just like, man, that if you want to hold up an example of what college football has turned into, Jalen Rashada is the example. Yeah, definitely worth the read. You want to check it out. The price, what it takes to win in college football's era of chaos. 719-247-1313 is the number. Pat Surtain is the highest paid defensive back in NFL history. Bo Nix is a Broncos captain. Get into those topics coming up. But in the meantime, we are on the eve of the NFL season beginning. Who are the 5 most intriguing teams this NFL season? I'll tell you, in my opinion, next on Extra Sports 1300. Saturday, the Air Force Falcons open up Mountain West play against an old friend, Ken Niumatalolo, longtime Navy coach, now the head man at San Jose State. Kickoff is at 5. I have a 4-pack of tickets for you. If you are the 13th texter to text Falcons and your name to 719-247-1313. Tomorrow night, our wait is over. Well, I suppose for you, the wait would finally be over on Sunday, but Thursday will hold you over for a couple of days, won't it? The NFL season kicks off tomorrow night. Ravens and Chiefs right here on Extra Sports 1300 at 6. And going into this year, there are a lot of teams that I'm interested in and a lot of players that I'm interested in. But a lot of the teams I'm interested in, I don't know what 17 weeks is going to do. Right? San Francisco, Kansas City, Baltimore, Dallas even. I mean, we're going to be inundated with Cowboys stuff, but I know what they are during the regular season. They're going to be really good. They're going to win a lot of games because they have talent. That's not what it's about for them. So when I put together a list of the 5 teams I am most interested in when the season kicks off, it's more about what teams I'm interested in during the regular season. And then some of these teams will fall off. Some might not, but some will. And then it will be, okay, now it's time for Kansas City. Will they three-peat? That last dance feel right now with San Francisco, all this Dallas Cowboys stuff. So for 17 weeks, what teams are going to be the most intriguing? Because I don't know that some of these teams are intriguing really for 17 weeks. So here's the list I got. See what you think. At number 5, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. What they are trying to do is very interesting to me. They're going to give Russell Wilson game 1 with Justin Fields standing on the side. Is he going to be out there? They say that they're going to do some things with Justin Fields. The first time Russell Wilson struggles, which could be week 1, the calls for Justin Fields to start, just the idea that the answer to an offense that has been anemic for a few years now is Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And you know where I stand on these two, but it's still this is your answer. I know what the best answer of those two is, but just the fact that this is where they're going to try and create some semblance of offense, I'm intrigued by it. Steelers at number 5. At number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers. And I think that the Packers are going to be one of the last teams standing. But I, like many people, have taken 8 games of Jordan Love and anointed Green Bay as one of the threats to Kansas City, right? One of the top contenders. Even though I believe they are, I still can understand that I'm taking a bit of a leap here. 8 games of good Jordan Love. The Broncos beat the Packers with Jordan Love. Right before all of that. It is one of the smaller sample sizes that we've ever gone on to say this team is a Super Bowl contender. So even though the Packers, I think, will make a deep run in the postseason, I still think the 17 games to get there are going to be interesting to watch. When the first bump in the road happens after Jordan Love experienced success last year. So the Packers are number 4. At number 3, and this is not based on my job or where I am located, I genuinely think the Broncos are one of the more fascinating teams going into this year. Sean Payton is doing something he has never done before. And that is try to win with a rookie quarterback. And the fact that he is pinning maybe his hopes of being inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Bo Nix is fascinating. There are a few teams that are pinning their hopes and dreams on a rookie quarterback. None of those coaches, not Dan Quinn, not Matt Eberflus, have the resume of Sean Payton and have as much at stake, perhaps, as Sean Payton. Eberflus maybe because it's his job, but it's Sean Payton's legacy. And just as he continues to terraform this Broncos team and is almost defiant in the face of people who want to say they're not going to win a lot, I think that the Broncos are legitimately one of the more interesting teams over the course of the next 17 games. At number 2, I have the New York Jets. We had a report just a few days ago that Aaron Rodgers is not a team guy, which color me shocked. That Aaron Rodgers is about Aaron Rodgers first and foremost. How that dynamic plays out with, and I hope Aaron Rodgers is healthy. You don't want a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers to be shelved. You went through that last year. That's not fun. I want him on the field. And I want to see all of this because Aaron Rodgers laid out the stakes perfectly. If this doesn't work out, they're all gone. Robert Saleh is certainly gone. Nathaniel Hackett, gone. We'll see about Aaron Rodgers. But everything is riding on this Jets season. And to see Aaron Rodgers coming off of the Achilles, like how far is he removed really from his MVP seasons? Is he going to be that good? Because some people have noticed a little bit of a drop-off. Like some people are saying they've seen the signs that Aaron Rodgers is deteriorating as a quarterback. I want to see that play out. Not necessarily I'm rooting for that to happen. I want to see it if that is indeed the case. And what happens in New York if that is the case. But HBO and I agree that the most intriguing, fascinating, call it what you will, team for this NFL season is the Chicago Bears. We have never seen a rookie quarterback get surrounded with what Caleb Williams is surrounded by. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, they even go out and draft Rome Odunze. The running backs with DeAndre Swift. The move they made to get Montez Sweat last year, which paid off big time, at least in terms of how improved that Bears pass rush was. They almost landed Matthew Judon. You have a coach on the hot seat with a rookie quarterback. You have a franchise that has probably been the most devoid of quarterback talent of any team in NFL history. A storied franchise in a division that is going to be one of the more fascinating divisions with Detroit and with Green Bay. Chicago Bears, to me, probably the team I'm most interested to see out on the field week 1 and continuing through 17 games. 5 Steelers, 4 Packers, 3 Broncos, 2 Jets, 1 Bears. What teams are you most intrigued by this upcoming NFL season? 719-24-7-1313. Coming up next, yet another thing that Bo Nix has gotten, and he hasn't even played a regular season NFL game yet. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you on this Wednesday. If you would like to watch the show on a daily basis, you can do so via our social media platforms, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. The handle is all the same at, at sign, XTRA Sports 1300. Coming up at 4:20, Jessica Mendoza will join me from KKTV 11 to discuss Patrick Surtain's big contract, but also this other Broncos item of news today, and that is Bo Nix being named one of the captains for the Denver Broncos. And it is the first time since 1967 when Floyd Little was named a captain that a rookie is wearing a C for the Denver Broncos. Now, being named a captain in the NFL is not like being named a captain in hockey. You know this. Does not carry the same weight, the same responsibility, and it's not even as special given that on a hockey team there's only one captain. Only one that gets to wear the C, and with football teams, it's like one from every position group. So I don't want to equate Bo Nix getting a C and Cortland Sutton getting one and Will Lutz getting one to what hockey players do in terms of what that means. This is in many ways a popularity contest. Like, let's be honest. A lot of this is, it's like electing class officers. Right? You did this in junior high and high school. My kids just did this for their classes. And it inevitably, when I ask them, who won, the answer is the popular kid. It's not about skill level or accomplishment. It's a popularity contest. But with Bo Nix, isn't that kind of the point? Isn't that something somewhat significant? I know he hasn't proven a damn thing in the NFL. So he's not getting a captaincy because he has this track record of being a leader and leading NFL teams to success and all this kind of stuff. I don't think the Broncos even know what kind of a leader Bo Nix really is. Right? They're going to find out. But this is when things get real, is when the NFL season begins. And you can have one opinion of somebody and it can change when you're under the stress that an NFL season provides. But isn't this kind of a thing, this putting a C on his jersey, isn't that kind of the first step here? I mean, isn't that part of it? Isn't this part of Sean Payton's grand plan to make Bo Nix earn the starting quarterback job? Is he wanted him to win over the locker room, to be well liked? I think it is. And this is a sign from his teammates, because it was voted on by his teammates, that they like Bo Nix. They don't know much better than you and I do how good Bo Nix is going to be. But they like the guy. They want to give him an attaboy. I think just that is fairly significant when it comes to a rookie quarterback. He's won over the room. They like him. And that was part of it. That was part of this process. And a lot of the guys that voted him the captain today, they played with the last guy. And they were here, even though Sean Payton has turned over quite a bit of the roster. Quite a few of them were in Denver when the last guy arrived, with his own office and his own coaches and this aura of, I'm here to save you. And I'm not saying that Russell Wilson said that to them, but that was just the feeling. Right? And when you come in with an entourage and you're getting special treatment, it creates kind of a divide. And I think Russell Wilson had to work hard to try and break through that. And I don't know how effective he was in the end. I wonder how many teammates were just towing the party line. Because there's no good that can come from, yeah, the dude's kind of stuck up and he's kind of cringy and I don't really like the guy. That's the stuff you heard from Seattle people after the fact. Right? And that's probably closer to the truth than we love Russell Wilson. But with Bo Nix, that divide wasn't there. Like, yes, he was a first-round draft pick, but he wasn't Caleb Williams, who coincidentally also got named a captain today. But like Bo Nix was what? 5th quarterback taken? Yeah, you're a first-round quarterback, but you don't come in with the same air around you that if you're round 1, pick 1, or round 1, pick 2, not a top 5 pick, not a top 10 pick. Teams essentially collectively deem that 4 guys in this draft are better than Bo Nix. So he kind of came in a little without kind of that normal stuff you get with a first round quarterback. But here's where Bo Nix deserves credit. Right? He never once gave them a reason to think otherwise. Like, he came in humble. He carried the pads. He carried the helmets, did all of that rookie stuff. He fit in. He did what rookies are supposed to do, what they are asked to do. He conducted himself the way that veterans expect rookies to conduct themselves and understand that they don't know everything and they're just getting started. And he did that while blending it with learning the offense and commanding the offense and performing well in the preseason. Getting the captaincy is a credit to Bo Nix, even if a large portion of this is the Broncos PR staff or the Broncos saying what would look good. Right? There's that. I'm not naive to it. But that doesn't mean that somewhere underneath that is like good for Bo Nix. And this is a good sign of things. I don't know if the Broncos liked Russell Wilson. I don't know if Drew Lock ever showed some of the things that Bo Nix does in terms of maturity. So the fact that he has that and he's blended that, I think he does deserve some credit here. And if I may for a moment make another comparison to someone who got a C put on his jersey without accomplishing anything, that was Gabriel Landeskog. Now, it was more meaningful and it was more of an outrage that this 19-year-old got the captaincy put on his sweater. And it was kind of it felt like a PR stunt. It felt like something that would look good in a press release, something that would make people believe in the direction that that franchise was going because, hey, we got this young guy and look, he's the captain. They love him so much. They believe in so much him and so much. They made him the captain. When Gabriel Landeskog was named the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, it was very much looked at like a PR stunt. Now, it's more so because, again, of the weight that that letter carries that NFL captains just don't. Captains in any sport don't compare to what it means to be a captain in hockey. So it was even more exaggerated because of that. But look how he turned out. The credit that you give Gabriel Landeskog, maybe they saw some traits in there early on that they're like, this dude gets it. And I think that's where the Broncos are. Like, Bo Nix gets it. Doesn't mean he's going to be a great quarterback. But he understands his place. He understands what he can do. He says the right things. Like, maybe there was some of that with Gabriel Landeskog. But the credit to Gabriel Landeskog is, look, he grew into it. And now you can't even imagine, like, if you just became an Avs fan like 10 minutes ago, and I told you that there was a time where Gabriel Landeskog, it was a joke that he was the captain. You would think that's insane. Because looking back, it is. Because he turned out to be everything that you would want a captain to be. But there was no guarantees. So with lower stakes, with it not meaning what it does for a hockey player, why can't Bo Nix be something similar? Grow into it. Take that responsibility, whatever responsibility does lie with being a captain in the NFL, and embrace that. And say, they like me. Now I need to grow into an actual leader, somebody that they look up to, that they respect. And there's a difference. And it's a difference that doesn't happen over the course of 3 preseason games or a training camp. If Bo Nix is a real leader, you'll find out. But the theme of this training camp in this preseason for Bo Nix is, look, what else can the guy do? Right? The biggest questions can't even be answered until Sunday. And even then, the goalposts will be moved back. And again, that's not complete. Even if he is great on Sunday, it's still no indication that he's going to be great. So everything with Bo Nix is just, for what this is, good for Bo Nix. It's good that he played well in the preseason against defenses that weren't scheming to beat him. But what else is he supposed to do? Same thing here. What can he really prove right now that said, oh, captain, like, oh, captain, my captain? Like, nothing. He can win a popularity contest. And look, whether they like him or not is not going to matter whether they win or lose, but hey, it's the first step. So Bo Nix named one of the captains of the Denver Broncos. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Jessica Mendoza will join me. She heard what Bo Nix had to say about being named a captain, what Pat Surtain said about being paid a lot of money. So those two topics and many other Broncos-related topics with Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 Sports next. The Broncos opened their season Sunday in Seattle, but there were a couple of items of business that the Broncos had to take care of before they head out to Seattle. Patrick Surtain becoming the highest paid corner in NFL history, and Bo Nix becoming the first Broncos rookie to be named a captain since Floyd Little. Joining me now, somewhere around Dove Valley in the Broncos facility, always working, Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 Sports. Jessica, been a bit. How are you?
Yeah, it has been a bit. I'm doing good. Excited for the season to start. Broncos, football's here. It's just madness, but it's all fun and we're excited for it.
Why did the Broncos do this deal with Pat Surtain now?
Well, I think it saves them money in the long run, right? If you let him get to the end of his contract, that price just goes up from there. I think you have a franchise player like him, you're not going to get any better than him, and you have to keep your good players around while you can. So they wanted to know going into the end of his contract that he was going to be around And like I said, at the end of the day, you save a little bit of money by getting it done sooner. As fat of a contract as that is, hard to imagine all that money you're saving but that price just goes up every year. So I think them resetting the market right now does them a favor in the long run.
What did Pat say about being made the highest paid corner in NFL history?
Yeah, he had a big smile on his face after practice today. Just super grateful, thankful for team ownership. And he said it was like a burden that was taken off of his shoulders. When we talked to him at the very beginning of the season, right after Quinn Meinerz got his new deal, he was actually very calm about the whole situation when they were asked, are you looking for a new deal this season? Knowing that was kind of going to be in the works soon. He said, it's going to happen whenever it happens, and I'm letting my, agent take care of all of that. But today, he said it was a burden off of his shoulders, and that he knows that a lot of players in this league never get a second contract. So for him to know where he's going to be through the 2029 season and know that he's going to be taken care of, he looked very happy and very relieved today. Knows he's going to have to turn it into something and continue to play how he has on the field the next few years. But he also talked about, what he's going to do, maybe his first big purchase with all this money. He said he needs to get a new ride. So he said his Mercedes right now isn't quite up to par with where he wants to be.
I was just saying that myself the other day. I looked in my garage and I said, this Mercedes is not up to par where I want it to be. But unfortunately, I'm not due for another contract for a little bit. So Pat will beat me to the punch on that. Jessica Mendoza, my guest, talking Broncos. The significance of Bo Nix being named a captain as a rookie is what in your mind, and what was kind of the discussion up there in Denver?
Yeah, it's obviously huge. We were talking about it just yesterday in the sports office. Not sure if he would be named one, just because, as you mentioned, the Broncos haven't had a rookie captain in 50 something years. So this is huge. Sean Payton's never had a rookie captain ever for himself as well. I think as long as it's true to what the Broncos are saying, that it was truly voted on by the team and that was the only thing that counted, it says a lot about how they view him as a leader. Coming in, I know there's so much respect for his mentality and the way that he looks at this game, is looking at his rookie season, his expectations for himself. One of his, I think, his biggest fans on this team, as far as, from what the media has heard week by week, is Mike McGlinchey. And that's huge too, the relationship that they'll have. But he just always talks about his maturity, his ability to lead guys that are so much older than him and that have so much more experience than him. So I know that Bo Nix was very grateful. He said, always good to be a captain. And I think he's just happy to know that his team is fully behind him in that way, and that they trust him, not just with that title, but obviously with leading them to hopefully some wins this season.
How's he feeling about his first NFL start?
Yeah, so he talked a little bit about, just how he is taking it just as another game, I guess. He said that a little bit today, as far as the crowd and, the noise. He said he's been there before, and that's something he's expecting that he won't be shaken up by. But he sounds confident in the way that the team has been preparing these last few weeks. And he just seems like his normal self this week, very confident, not too talkative as usual, but he doesn't seem shaken up by the opportunity. He seems ready to go and knows that he has a lot to prove this Sunday in Seattle.
You were routinely up at Dove Valley, and you have experience following this team, even in the Sean Payton era. As you kind of look back, I guess training camp was over a little while ago, but just now here where we draw the dividing line between the lead up to the season and the actual season, how did this whole lead up feel different? How was it different through your eyes as compared to maybe what it was with Sean Payton entering for year one?
Yeah, I think the absence of Russell Wilson has just changed things so much. And we've heard a lot since in training camp and since then, kind of like these small jabs that you're almost like, I feel like that was a diss directly at Russell Wilson without saying his name, just about, the other quarterback's abilities to, unite this team and as leaders. And, what Sean Payton has said this offseason, things feel different in terms of there's a little bit more excitement because of the unknown. Obviously, the external expectations are still very low for this team, but I think the Broncos like what they're seeing from Bo Nix. They truly believe that he can be better than Russell Wilson was. And I also think there's a belief that, we hear it so much, young and hungry can be dangerous, right? Like that's the whole motto of this roster and this team this season. So even losing key guys on the defense from last year, I think from what we saw in preseason, as much as you can take from that, they looked really good. And so I think there's just a lot of excitement with new guys coming in, the next man up mentality. And I don't think they're at all bothered by the external noise of what people believe this team's capable of this year.
What do you believe this team is capable of this year?
Oh, well, it's hard because, I mentioned the preseason, right? And you want to get all excited about what you saw, but then you have to remember, who those guys were playing against. And even John Elway said at the BMW Championship, and that's just staying in the back of my head when we're thinking about Bo Nix and what he can do. It's a huge step. Even if you are playing starters in the preseason, it's a huge step for a rookie quarterback from the preseason to the regular season. So that goes back to all of the unknown, right? And I think that they'll get more than their 5 wins. I think they could probably get 7 or 8. But who knows if they could surpass even that. I think it'll be really interesting to see. They have a pretty tough schedule there in the middle. So they're going to have to start fast, like they've been talking about all summer long, start faster than we did last year. And that's going to be tough with younger guys. But if they can do that, this season will look better than a lot of people are expecting.
What you mentioned a couple of segments of the season as far as what you think the Broncos will be. What stretch of games do you kind of look at and say, well, that's going to, if I'm going to be more bullish on the Denver Broncos, it's because they beat this team or they start off this way. And conversely, if you start to kind of hedge and be like, oh, maybe they are closer to a 5-win team. What game or games is it to you that you'll say, I'm going to look at that and say that will sway me on my preseason prediction, whether I stick with it or whether I move one way or another?
Well, I think so much relies on week 1, this Sunday in Seattle. I think getting our first real look, of course, a lot can change after that. These guys are going to learn, but actually finally seeing them in action in a real game, something that matters, is going to tell us a lot. So it's not even win or loss this Sunday for me, but it's just like kind of passing the eye test, right? Like, how are they functioning? Is this offense going to work? Where are they strong? Where are they weak? I don't know. I mean, just week 1 is going to be huge for me. And then as far as like teams that you're hoping for them to beat, their first division game, I think against the Raiders in October, that's Sean Payton said, you're never going to get me guessing what our record's going to be. I'm never going to make those predictions, but I do go into that locker room and talk to the guys about how we can win the division, how we can beat division rivals, and ultimately how we can get into the playoffs. So I think going up tough against the Raiders in October will be big for this team as well.
Well, it all starts on Sunday afternoon. In the meantime, more on Bo being named a captain and Pat being named a 96 millionaire from Jessica Mendoza tonight at 5:30 and 10. Jessica, really appreciate the time and the insight. When you do head back to Colorado Springs, please travel safe.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll see you in studio next week.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it, Jessica. Thanks. That's Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11 Sports, joining us from Dove Valley as she prepares for her 5:30 sportscast. I think that Raider game, for me, I don't know if I can get bullish on the Denver Broncos because they beat the Raiders, but I've laid that out as kind of one of the non-negotiables. Like, if this season is going to be characterized as a success, one of the things they have to do is they have to put an end to the losing streak against the Raiders. And that's the team in this division that I feel like they can be better than. So if you can't beat them at home and end this losing streak, then I don't know what other games on the schedule you're supposed to look at and say, well, the Broncos are going to win that game. Carolina, okay, I'll grant you that one. What else? They can't beat Vegas. Do you think they could beat the Chargers with Justin Herbert? You think they could beat the Chiefs? You think they could beat, Cleveland and Indianapolis and Baltimore? So to me, that game is, they got to get that one. Have to. And I think Sean Payton knows it. And that's why that's one of the few things that he has let out in terms of his expectation. I think he really wants to beat the Raiders or win games in the division. I don't know that he carries the weight of a decades-long rivalry on his shoulders. It's just they're in our division. I know I have to beat them. And the Raiders are the one team that they should be able to beat. 719-247, 1313. Coming up next, are the Broncos going to be one of the new playoff teams in the NFL this year? I'll tell you next on Extra Sports 1300. Congratulations need to go out to Corey, who won a 4-pack of tickets to see Air Force take on San Jose State Saturday evening at 5. But don't be jealous of Corey. Corey has a lot going on, no doubt about it. But I have another 4-pack of Falcon tickets to give away right now. So if you'd like to join Corey and check out Air Force opening up the conference slate against San Jose State Saturday evening, 5 o'clock. Should know the drill by now. 13th texter to text Falcons and your name to 719-247-1313. Every year in the NFL, we get a healthy amount of new teams that make the postseason. In fact, on average, 6 new teams every year are in the playoffs. And as I'm starting to map out my predictions for the upcoming season, I noticed that I am just a tick under. Actually, I'm right on. I forgot. I put the Bengals in a different category. I have 6 new teams getting into the playoffs. First one, Cincinnati. They're my worst to first pick because that happens on a yearly basis. Now, I didn't go into this exercise trying to find, okay, I got to get to 6. Who are they going to be? I just mapped it out, what I thought, looked at the schedule, and I'm like, oh, I ended up having 6 new teams, which tracks, as the kids say. So one I have is Cincinnati, and I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, and I think a lot of people are jumping on that. In fact, my friends at Circa Sports say that the Bengals are minus 250 to get into the playoffs. They are the most prohibitive favorite of the teams that I think that missed the playoffs last year that will make it this year. So, yeah, a lot of people think Cincinnati's a pretty good bet, and I think they will. Another one will not be shocking to you. A couple of these not shocking to you, but I'm not here to shock you. I'm here to give you what I think. Atlanta. The only path for Atlanta is to win their division. I would think because of the strength of other divisions. But if they can beat up on a division with Carolina and New Orleans and Tampa Bay, they will make the postseason. They're also quite prohibitive favorites to get in to the postseason, minus 195. Another one that I have, and I went back and forth about this one. I have the Jets getting in at the expense of the Buffalo Bills. Essentially, I have Cincinnati getting in and Cleveland falling out. I have Atlanta getting in and Tampa falling out. And in the East, essentially, you could make the swap Jets for Bills. I'm not down on Josh Allen. I believe in Josh Allen. And I think he'll be a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers this season, but I can't overlook how much Buffalo has lost around him. And now you have the Matt Milano injury, and it's just, as much as I like Josh Allen, with how competitive the AFC is, what the Bills are doing cannot go unpunished. Josh Allen is good. He's not Mahomes. and you took away Stephon Diggs, you took away key defensive players, I still think like they're not going to fall off a cliff. Okay, they're going to have a winning season. They're going to be in it, but I think I'm going to take New York not to win the division. That's Miami, but I think the Jets get in. Even if Aaron Rodgers is not the MVP quarterback that he was, he's still like infinitely better than Zach Wilson. Okay, and Zach Wilson got wins with that defense. I don't know what's happening with Hassan Reddick. To me, what it does, if they have him, they might be the best defense in the NFL. Without him, they're still one of the best defenses in the NFL. With that defense, with Garrett Wilson, with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, the Broncos won the Super Bowl with noodle arm Peyton Manning. Like, I got to believe Aaron Rodgers is at least better than that form of quarterbacking the Broncos got from Peyton Manning. And I know Brock Osweiler helped them through that season, but my point is, even if, as long as Aaron Rodgers isn't completely done with, that's capable enough quarterbacking. And even the decision making, right? And that's the argument I made back in that Super Bowl season on these very airwaves with Peyton Manning, Brock Osweiler. I at least want the brain of Peyton Manning. I may not have the arm, and Brock Osweiler might have a better arm, but I need a guy that thinks the game at a higher level. With the defense that the Jets have, with the running game that they have with Breece Hall, with the improvements they made to the offensive line, the brain of Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, I think goes a long way. I don't think he's going to win another MVP. But to be one of the wild card teams, I think they're going to get enough from him to be that. And a lot of people agree with me because on Circa Sports, the Jets are minus 200 to make the playoffs. Now I get into the ones that may be a little, they may be simmering just a little bit. I wouldn't say any of these are hot takes, but they're simmering. One is Chicago. I think that Chicago is a playoff team, and they're even money to make the postseason. They're a lot of people's pick, but Caleb Williams is a special talent at quarterback. Okay, we don't need to go back into, is he the best since this guy or this guy? He's special. And we'll find out what level of special he is soon enough. But he's special. And he's got a plethora of weapons. He's got a good defense. And he's in the right conference. Because the NFC is weaker than the AFC. I think there's enough there for the Chicago Bears to get into the playoffs. The two teams that are plus money that I think are going to be in the postseason after missing it last year are both in the AFC. One, the Jacksonville Jaguars at plus 120. I think they are, and I think their path probably has to be the division. But I look at the two teams at the top of that division, Jacksonville and Houston, and I say one is a prime candidate for a bounce back, given how banged up Trevor Lawrence was last year. The moves that Jacksonville made this offseason, they prioritized guys that come from winning programs to help curtail any possibility that they're going to fall off in the back half of the season like they did, but my biggest bet is on Trevor Lawrence. Now, he may never get to the level that I thought he would, or Nick Wright thought he would, the prince that was promised, but he's a good quarterback. If he's healthy, I think Jacksonville has arguably the best quarterback in the division and definitely the best coach in the division, and a roster that stacks up nicely. I think Jacksonville wins that division at the expense of the Houston Texans, who conversely I think are a prime regression candidate. It can't be that good. Not again. Not again. Teams have tape now on CJ Stroud. Quarterbacks don't, except for the guy in Kansas City, quarterbacks don't take off like that. And even Mahomes didn't have the rookie year that CJ Stroud did. I just look at it, and I still think that the Texans are a good team. And I think there are more playoff appearances in store for CJ Stroud. But I just look at it, and they are a prime candidate to regress. So I'll take Jacksonville to win that division and get in the playoffs. And the other is in the AFC West. By design, I have saved this for last. I think the Chargers get into the playoffs. I know. You were expecting another team. No, you weren't. If you listen to this show, you know where I stand on the Denver Broncos. I think that there are enough wins out there for the Chargers. And I think when Jim Harbaugh gets into town, things get right in a hurry. They're not a threat to knock off Kansas City off of their pedestal atop the AFC West. I don't think they're a serious contender for the Super Bowl. That's all down the road, and that there's a lot of things that have to be figured out. But when Jim Harbaugh shows up in a place, a change happens quickly. And I think enough of one happens here in LA with a quarterback with the talent that Justin Herbert has. I think they get into the playoffs. They're plus 125 to get in. So if trends continue and we get 6 new teams into the playoffs, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Chicago, the Jets, the Jags, and the Chargers is who I'm going to go with. Love to get your teams that missed the playoffs 1 year ago that you think will get in. 719-247-1313. If you would like to perhaps go a little bit more bold in the AFC West and pick, I don't know, Denver perhaps as one of those 6 teams to make the postseason after missing it the year before, I'm telling you, not going to get better value than plus 675, which is what Circa Sports is offering right now. And you can take advantage of that by downloading the Circa Sports Colorado app. This is what they do. They strive to be the best value that you're going to find. And they're so confident that they have done the work necessary that they invite you to shop around. Go ahead, look. And I just did. I saw a lot of places where like Denver plus 550 to make the postseason. That even bigger payout, plus 675. But what you're going to notice if you start to bet with Circa Sports is that you're going to notice a lot of minus 110 splits as opposed to minus 115, minus 120. Essentially what that is the sports books keeping more. Like putting that hold on it to make sure at least we get this, even if we lose the bet. With Circa, they strive not to do that. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets, especially compared to other books. They don't limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who limit winning players. They're all about the experience. That's the way they are out in Vegas. I experienced that firsthand. That's what they want to bring to this app. Check it out. Download it. Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older, present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. The 3 stories that are driving the show coming up next. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you on this Wednesday. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or through the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Congrats to Richard, who won our latest 4-pack of tickets to see Air Force take on San Jose State. And that'll be a surprise to Richard because I hadn't yet texted him back. I'm just announcing it on air that he won. But don't worry, Richard. I will get in touch with you shortly. I got to roll with the 3 stories that are driving the show today, which I will do right now. All right, story number 1 is Patrick Surtain got paid 4 years, $96 million. He is now the highest paid cornerback in the history of the National Football League. And the one thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to get in to these conversations that we tend to get into, especially around the quarterbacks getting paid. Yes, Pat Surtain deserves to be paid this money. If you look at the highest paid players in the NFL, he would be barely in the top 50. It is a different world for corners and other positions. He is right in line with the contract Marlon Humphrey has gotten from Baltimore, Marshawn Lattimore has gotten from New Orleans, and given how good he is at what he does, he deserves to be the highest paid at his position. And with this deal, there's a bit of practicality to it, right? And Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 joined me last hour, and she put it perfectly. Like, in the long run, they're going to save money. Right? It's like these quarterback deals. The whole idea is don't be the last one. Because if you're the last one, then you got to top everybody else. If you get it done earlier, then you're going to look back, and when Sauce Gardner gets paid, he's going to make more money. And you're going to say, wow, we arguably have a better player than that guy, and we're paying him less. That's how this works. And given the environment around the NFL right now, what have we been talking about for like the last few months other than Bo Nix? Jamar Chase holding in, CeeDee Lamb holding out, Trent Williams holding out. Dak Prescott, drama because he doesn't have a deal. This is also peace of mind, not just for Pat Surtain, but for the Denver Broncos. It's done. Now you don't even envision one of these hold-ins, hold-outs, getting to they didn't even wait till the 5th-year option kicked in. It's just like, we're just going to get done now because we know. So it's practical. Forget, oh, that's way too much money, or, all the pearl clutching that goes on. Like, it's practical. They're going to save money. And now with Pat Surtain, you have kind of the next Von Miller in a way. Right? The next non-quarterback face of the franchise. Bo Nix, if he throws 2 tutties and they beat Seattle, he's the face of the franchise. He's all anybody's going to talk about. It's just like when Peyton Manning got there. Like, Von Miller was great, but Peyton Manning was the face of that team. So it's the same thing. If Bo Nix hits, then he's going to be the face of the team. But you have Pat Surtain, and you have a guy that you think, okay, you spin this forward because you've seen it with Von Miller, you've seen it with Champ Bailey, you've seen it with John Elway, you've seen it with Shannon Sharp. He may not play his entire career with the Denver Broncos, but there will certainly be enough years in Denver, barring something unforeseen, that Pat Surtain will be a Bronco, right? And he can be a Ring of Famer, and it could be kind of the next one in line. It was Von Miller, and it was Champ Bailey, and go on back. So it's all good things. I don't see one negative to the Broncos paying Patrick Surtain, and at that dollar amount, trust me. The teams figure out a way to maneuver around these big quarterback contracts. The Broncos will still be able to take care of whatever else they need to take care of, even navigating through Pat Surtain's $96 million deal. The other item that came out of the Broncos today is, of course, about Bo Nix. Because we can only deviate from Bo Nix so far, and then we're like a magnet. We're just pulled back in. Bo Nix, one of the captains for this upcoming season. Now, in the NFL, this is not the honor that it is in hockey. Because if for no other reason, there's only one captain in hockey. He has assistants, but he's the only captain in the NFL. Cortland Sutton's a captain today. Pat Surtain's a captain today. Will Lutz is a captain. So I get it. This does not carry nearly the weight that putting a C on Austin Matthews' jersey the other day, what Toronto did. It doesn't nearly measure up to that. And yes, is this a popularity contest? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Cortland Sutton, Quinn Meinerz, Pat Surtain, Bo Nix. They're all probably the most well-liked at their positions as much as anything else. But when it comes to Bo Nix, that's kind of in line with everything else Bo Nix has done. Part of him winning this job is winning over the locker room. And this is a sign, because it is voted on by the players, they like him. And you think that that's such a rudimentary baseline thing. I don't know that they like the last guy that much. So it's just more a Bo Nix checking every box along the way to when it really matters. Right? Does this mean he's going to be Rookie of the Year? No. Does this mean he's going to do anything in the NFL? Absolutely not. But we're in this hurry up, and we can't wait to when, Bo Nix actually goes out and proves things on a field. Well, along the way, these are kind of the little checkpoints, and he keeps passing these little checkpoints. There you go. Okay, yeah. He's well-liked. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a popularity contest, but Bo Nix, the rookie, being one of the most popular guys on the Denver Broncos, being one of the more well-liked guys on the Denver Broncos, I think there's some significance in there. Story number 3 is me. Not me making news, but I just wanted to reset something that I just got done talking about. If you missed it, with the NFL season kicking off tomorrow night, most years we are accustomed to seeing 6 new playoff teams. That's on average. The 6 teams that I have getting into the postseason this year that did not get in the year prior. I have the Jets. I have the Falcons. I have the Bengals. I have the Jags. I have the Chargers. And I have the Bears. All 6 teams that were not in the postseason last year that I believe will get in this year. So if you'd like to discuss that, fire away. 719-247-1313. In fact, let me just go right into Tom because I see your text, Tom. Tom says, with the Jets, you are assuming Rodgers will make it through the whole year with an Achilles tendon held together by hamstring and pixie dust. I'm not so sure. Also, the Bears are the 3rd best team in their division, not going to make it. It's good. And extra points for not going to the easiest thing, which is ayahuasca, because as you know, ayahuasca can't hold anything together. It's a liquid. Yes, I am assuming health. I am, because I get it. You know, we all draw our own lines. If it's a player that has a repeated history of injury, I will work that into my analysis. I will work that into my thought process. But Aaron Rodgers had the one injury. It is significant, no doubt about it. He missed the entire year because of it. Yeah, this is health permitting. It is. And if he's not healthy, then I could then take it down to 5 teams and stick Buffalo in there. Yes, I'm assuming health with Aaron Rodgers, but I'm also assuming he's not at the level he was. So I feel like I'm accounting for something to say, okay, Aaron Rodgers isn't this, but still taking that into account. I think the Jets are a playoff team. But yeah, if Aaron Rodgers pops his Achilles against the San Francisco 49ers, then yeah, I reserve the right to say, yeah, I don't think that the Jets are going to make the playoffs now. To your second point about the Bears, it's a natural place for you to go. And I agree with you. The Bears are the third best team in their division. And we always talk about, and even Jessica and I were talking about this earlier, Sean Payton's comments about what they need to do in the division. But that's to win a division, right? To win a division, you got to at least split with everybody, right? At least 3 wins or whatever the benchmark, 3, maybe it's 4. I'm sure somebody did a study on this. Like, I understand. I'm not taking the Bears to win their division. I'm saying the 3 teams in the NFC North, one will beat up on Minnesota. There's that. But also, the schedule is becoming more towards non-divisional games. There's this 17th game now, and it's not against a division rival. So what I'm saying with Chicago is that they're going to get, I do think they beat the Packers this year. I do think they beat the Lions this year. But I think really where they make their hay is they beat the right teams and enough of them outside of their division. I think, I don't know what I did with it. I have so many papers in front of me. I think I have them at like, I think I had them at like 10 wins. I think that's where I had them. So yeah, I think that they're the third best team in that division. I would concede that point, but I think that there's enough teams on their schedule that they're better than outside of the division, in addition to doing a decent job within the NFC North, that they can get enough wins to make it to the postseason. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. And coming up next, if you want to take the family out for a little evening, check out the new Beetlejuice sequel. I have your chance to nab some passes to a special screening we are having, partnering with our friends at Icon Cinemas. That's coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Our friends at Icon Cinemas here in Colorado Springs are giving you a chance to see a special screening of the new movie Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. The whole band is back together. Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, all grown up. If you'd like to see it, the showing is this Sunday. It's at 6 p.m. You and 3 guests can go if you are the 13th texter at 719-247-1313 to text Beetlejuice and your name. Shouts to our friends at Icon. We got to do more stuff like this. Shouts to them. Tom says Bears get 1 win in the division. No, they don't, Tom. Clearly, you are not as high on the Chicago Bears as I am. Which is fine. But I think they get more than 1 win. And you look at their schedule, they play the AFC South, which has some good teams in it, not great teams. Carolina, they play the Commanders, they play the Cardinals, they play the Patriots. And I don't think Minnesota is very good. They could sweep Minnesota potentially. I don't think they have to get in the playoffs. But I think but I will say that I went into it with the same. I'm like 3 teams in one division, really? But yeah, I think it's going to work out. I think the math works out. I did it on my abacus and came out that way. I think the place that you would look is the West then, right? If you don't think Chicago or that division just in general, maybe you like Chicago, maybe you don't, maybe you're down on Green Bay. Think we're, putting the cart before the horse a little bit when it comes to Jordan Love. I've seen some people say that. It would be the NFC West, right? Rams, maybe the Seahawks. That's probably where that team would come from to spoil the NFC North having 3 teams. But you look at both the Norths, and the one team that already I can identify being, and I have Cleveland. I think Cleveland's going to have a winning record, but that could be the team again with Deshaun Watson. If they get anything from that dude, or maybe more likely, or maybe not more likely, but more, maybe Browns fans would like this better. They just decide to bail on him sooner and throw Jameis out there, which I know sounds crazy, but they did make the playoffs with Joe Flacco last year. So the problem is you have Nick Chubb missing the first few games of the season. If he's healthy after that, then you can really rely on him, whether Deshaun Watson's your quarterback or not. That's the one I look at with Cleveland. I'm like, that could be the spoiler. That could be the team. And that would make 3 teams in the North. I think it's possible. I think I feel better about taking Chicago than Cleveland at this point. Tom says 6 wins for the Bears, maybe 5. Truth may be somewhere in the middle between you and I, perhaps. Steve G says Surtain is the best cornerback, especially at his age. Glad the Broncos paid him one less thing to worry about. Exactly, right? You don't need it. Ask any 49er fan. Ask Cowboys fans. Like, you don't need it. You don't need this contract nonsense. Is Pat Surtain worth it? Yes, he's already proven that. Then just pay him. Get it done. You could always trade him down the road if you see fit, but you've done enough financial maneuvering. It's not a position that commands the most money. Get it done. And hey, not for nothing, but some more positive momentum. And that's what I'll say about this, the lead up to this Broncos season. There's a lot of positive momentum. Now, that momentum could end very quickly at the hands of Seattle on Sunday, but it's been a lot of good forward momentum, good vibes, great oldies. The Denver Broncos. And Steve G adds, for Bo Nix, for a rookie to be named captain, it shows other players are buying in on him. Yeah, they like. I think you see some signs that they're buying into Bo Nix. I'll just say they like the guy. I mean, look at the captaincy. If you don't want to look at it in the sense of, you know, what a captain means in hockey or anything close to it, just take it as the Broncos players want to give Bo Nix a pat on the back. They like the way he has conducted himself. They like the way he has played. They like the guy. Hey, Mikey, they like him. But that in and of itself can be, can be somewhat significant. Maybe not to the degree of perhaps a captain in hockey. Just perusing where the line's at for tomorrow night. Kansas City -3 is what Circa Sports Colorado has it. But what sticks out to me, even money. Even money on the Chiefs, -3. Can take them straight up on the money line at -155. I don't know about you, some of the best odds I've seen. But that's what I've come to expect from Circa Sports Colorado since downloading the app. I noticed as I shop around, because they told me, like, Ryan, shop around. So I have, and I constantly come back to Circa Sports Colorado and say, this is where I want to do my betting. And other sports books will get you in the door with these great offers of free bets and everything, and that's all well and good. But if you're planning on, sticking around season after season, you want the experience with your betting app, the odds to be the best thing about it, and that's what it is. Essentially, with Circa Sports Colorado, their lines are their promos. They strive to be a -110 split. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets, and they will often have the lowest hold on futures and other big markets because they're about the experience. That's what they're about. And how's this for experience? If you have something go awry or you just have a question, just know that the real human beings who are behind Circa Sportsbook in Vegas are also the people behind this app. So you talk to a real person and not chatbot. Thought of everything. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older, present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's see. Tom wants to bring in his new teams. Titans, that's spicy. I respect it. Commanders, that's even... Oh, see, Tom, I started to read your text and I was like, whoa, all right, Tom. And then you were just pointing out what games you thought the Bears would win. I thought you were really going on a limb and like, I'm taking the Titans, I'm taking the Commanders, I'm taking the Card. And I'm like, wait a minute. Caught on to it. Steve G says, I think the Browns were drinking ayahuasca when they offered Watson that contract, no cut, and all that money burned. Yeah, it has a chance, and I think Bronco fans are just waiting and counting down the days till that is the quarterback contract that more people talk about than Russell Wilson's. But we'll see. It all starts tomorrow night with a little appetizer. With Kansas City and Baltimore, you'll be able to hear the game right here on Extra Sports 1300 at 6. I got to bounce. Not literally. I got to go. Appreciate your patronage. My thanks to Armin Katayan as well as Jessica Mendoza for being my guests. And I will be back with you tomorrow at 3 right here on Extra Sports 1300.